The evening air felt electric as Emma placed the last painting on the gallery wall. Her hands trembled slightly, not from the weight of the artwork, but from the pressure of making tonight perfect. The charity gala was starting in 2 hours, and her boss had made it clear that her future at the gallery depended on its success. Emma tucked a strand of brown hair behind her ear and stepped back to look at her work. The exhibition space had transformed from a blank canvas into something magical. Soft lights made the paintings glow, and flowers added touches of color throughout the room. Everything was ready, except for one major problem. Her phone buzzed. Emma glanced at the message and her stomach dropped. The photographer had canceled. Without photos, the event wouldn't get the press coverage they needed. Emma closed her eyes and took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Looks like someone's having a rough day," a deep voice said from behind her. Emma turned around to see a tall man with kind eyes and a camera hanging around his neck. He wore a simple black suit that fit him perfectly. "I'm Jack," he said, extending his hand. "The gallery owner called me, said you might need some help tonight." Emma shook his hand, feeling a strange flutter in her chest when their fingers touched. "Emma, and yes, our photographer just bailed on us. You're a lifesaver." Jack smiled, and Emma noticed how it made little lines form at the corners of his eyes. "Let me take a quick tour of the space so I can plan my shots." As they walked through the gallery, Emma found herself watching Jack more than explaining the artwork. He moved with confidence, seeing things through his camera that others might miss. She learned he was a professional photographer who usually shot landscapes and travel pieces, not events. "Why did you agree to help tonight?" Emma asked as they finished the tour. Jack shrugged. "I was supposed to be on a date, but she canceled. Something about reconnecting with an ex." He didn't seem upset about it. "Besides, your boss offered good money." "Well, lucky for me she stood you up," Emma said, then blushed at how that sounded. Jack laughed. "Lucky indeed." The next 2 hours flew by in a blur of preparations. Jack turned out to be helpful beyond taking photos. He moved furniture, hung lights, and even charmed the caterers into adding extra hors d'oeuvres. Emma found herself laughing more than she had in months. When guests began arriving, Jack blended into the background, capturing candid moments while Emma played hostess. Their eyes met across the room several times, and each time, Emma felt that same flutter in her chest. The night was a success. Paintings sold, donors wrote big checks, and everyone seemed to enjoy themselves. As the last guests left, Emma kicked off her painful heels and sank onto a bench in the empty gallery. "You did it," Jack said, sitting beside her. He handed her a glass of champagne from a nearby table. "We did it," Emma corrected him, clinking her glass against his. "I couldn't have pulled this off without you." In the quiet of the nearly empty gallery with soft lights glowing around them, Emma felt something shift in the air. Jack was looking at her differently now, his eyes dropping to her lips then back to her eyes. "You have a bit of..." Jack reached out and gently wiped a smudge of lipstick from the corner of her mouth with his thumb. Emma's breath caught. They were sitting very close now, shoulders touching. The simple contact of his thumb against her lip sent warmth spreading through her body. "Thanks for saving the night," she whispered. "Thanks for making it worth saving," he answered. 3 days passed. Emma tried to focus on work, but her mind kept returning to that kiss. She had dated before, had been married and divorced, but no kiss had ever made her feel so alive. It was just physical attraction, she told herself. Nothing more. The gallery was quiet this morning. Emma sat at her desk, looking through emails when her boss, Kate, walked in. "The photos from the gala are amazing," Kate said, placing a folder on Emma's desk. "That photographer was brilliant. I want him for our next event." Emma opened the folder. Jack's photos captured the night perfectly, the art, the guests, the atmosphere. She paused at a photo of herself, standing by a painting, laughing at something off-camera. The way he had captured her made her look beautiful, glowing. "I'll contact him," Emma said, closing the folder quickly. "Good. And we need him for the new exhibition too?" Kate added. "The Morrison collection needs professional photos for the catalog." Emma's heart beat faster. "Can't we use someone else?" Kate shook her head. "His work speaks for itself. Just make it happen." After Kate left, Emma stared at her phone. Just call him, she thought. It's just business. Finally, she dialed his number. "Emma, Jack answered on the second ring, as if he had been waiting for her call. I was going to contact you today. His voice brought back the feeling of his lips on hers. Emma gripped her desk. The photos are perfect, she said, trying to sound professional. My boss wants to hire you again for our next exhibition. A pause. I'd like that. They arranged to meet the next day to discuss details. Emma hung up, feeling both excited and nervous. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She stood by her apartment window, looking at the city lights. Why was she so affected by one kiss? By a man she barely knew? Her marriage had ended because her ex-husband said she was too focused on her career, too cold. Emma had accepted that relationships weren't for her, so why couldn't she stop thinking about Jack? The next day, Jack arrived at the gallery wearing jeans and a simple blue shirt that made his eyes look even deeper blue. Emma tried not to notice how good he looked. These are the pieces for the exhibition, she said, showing him photographs of paintings. We need high-quality images for the catalog. Jack looked through them, nodding. His fingers brushed hers as he took a photo, and Emma felt that same spark. She moved away quickly. About what happened after the gala, Jack said suddenly. We don't need to talk about it, Emma interrupted. It was just a moment. Too much champagne. Jack studied her face. Is that what you think it was? Emma couldn't meet his eyes. What else would it be? I haven't been able to stop thinking about it, Jack admitted. About you. The honesty in his voice made Emma look up. His eyes were intense, focused completely on her. I can't do this, she whispered. Do what? Jack stepped closer. Whatever this is, I don't do relationships. They don't work for me. Jack reached out slowly and touched her cheek. Emma should have moved away, but she couldn't. His touch was gentle, questioning. How do you know this is like other relationships? He asked. Emma closed her eyes. Jack, I have to work with you. Let's keep things professional. He sighed and dropped his hand. If that's what you want. They spent the next hour discussing the exhibition, both careful not to touch, to stand too close. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. As Jack was leaving, he paused at the door. For what it's worth, I've kissed many women in my life. None of them felt like kissing you. After he left, Emma sat at her desk, hands shaking. She had built walls around herself after her divorce, focusing only on her career. Safe, controlled. Now one kiss from a man she barely knew had created cracks in those walls. That night, Emma dreamed of Jack. In her dream, they were back in the gallery, but alone. 2 weeks passed with Emma and Jack working together on the exhibition. They kept things professional, but every moment near him tested Emma's resolve. She noticed everything about him, how he ran his hand through his hair when concentrating, how his eyes crinkled when he smiled, how his voice grew softer when they were alone. Today they needed to drive to a private collector's home outside the city to photograph a rare painting for the exhibition. Emma checked the weather forecast. Heavy rain expected. Perfect, she thought, a long drive in a storm with a man she couldn't stop thinking about. Jack picked her up in his car. Morning, he said, handing her a coffee. Their fingers touched during the exchange, and Emma felt that now familiar warmth spread through her. Thanks, she said, looking out the window as he drove. The sky was already dark with storm clouds. They were quiet at first, the silence filled with things unsaid. Finally, Jack turned on some music. Tell me about yourself, Emma. All I know is that you work at the gallery and make a great event organizer. Emma sipped her coffee. Not much to tell. I grew up in a small town, moved here for college, got a degree in art history, got married young, divorced 3 years ago. Now work is my life. Jack glanced at her. Why did your marriage end, if you don't mind me asking? Emma was quiet for a moment. He said I was cold. Too focused on my career. Maybe he was right. I don't think you're cold, Jack said softly. Emma changed the subject. What about you? Why is a talented photographer like you doing event photography? Jack smiled. I travel a lot for work. Nature photography, landscapes. But I needed a break, so I'm staying in one place for a while, doing whatever jobs come my way. So you don't stay anywhere long, Emma noted, feeling a twinge of disappointment. Never found a reason to, Jack admitted. The rain started, gentle at first, then pouring down in sheets. Jack slowed the car. The road became harder to see, water splashing up as they drove through puddles. Suddenly, A loud bang and the car jerked to the right. Jack carefully pulled over to the side of the road. "Flat tire," he said after checking. "I'll change it, but we should wait for the rain to ease up a bit." They sat in the car, listening to the rain pound on the roof. The windows fogged up from their breath. Emma was very aware of Jack next to her, their shoulders almost touching in the small space. "I've been thinking about what you said," Jack said suddenly. "About keeping things professional." Emma's heart raced. "Jack, no, let me finish. I respect your boundaries, but I can't pretend I don't feel something when I'm around you." Emma looked at him, at his honest blue eyes, at the way water dripped from his hair. Something broke inside her. "I feel it too," she whispered. Jack moved closer, his hand finding hers. "What are you so afraid of?" "Getting hurt," Emma admitted. "You're the kind of man who doesn't stay. I'm the kind of woman who cares too much." Jack touched her face, gently turning it toward him. "Maybe we both need to take a chance." This time, when their lips met, it wasn't a surprise. Emma leaned into the kiss, her hands moving to his damp hair. Jack pulled her closer, the gear shift between them an annoying barrier. His lips were warm against hers, his touch making her feel like she was melting. When they broke apart, both were breathing heavily. The car windows were completely fogged now, creating a private world for just the two of them. "The rain's stopping," Jack said, but he didn't move away. Emma looked at his lips, then back to his eyes. "We should get going." Neither moved. Instead, Jack's hand slid behind her neck, pulling her in for another kiss. This one was deeper, more urgent. Emma felt desire course through her body. His other hand moved to her waist, then higher, brushing the side of her breast. Even through her clothes, his touch left a trail of fire. "We can't do this here," Emma gasped, breaking the kiss. Jack rested his forehead against hers. "You're right." His voice was rough with want. "But we need to finish this conversation." The rain had nearly stopped. Jack got out to change the tire while Emma tried to compose herself. Her body hummed with unfulfilled desire, her lips still tingling from his kisses. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she unlocked her apartment door. Jack followed her inside, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body behind her. The small space suddenly felt even smaller with his presence filling it. "Nice place," Jack said, looking around at her neat living room with its bookshelves and art prints. "Thanks." Emma moved to the kitchen. "I'll make that coffee." Jack followed, leaning against the counter as she worked. The domesticity of the moment struck her, how natural it felt to have him in her space. When she turned around with 2 mugs, he was watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I don't actually want coffee," he said softly. Emma set the mugs down. "What do you want, Jack?" He stepped closer, his blue eyes never leaving hers. "You know what I want." The air between them crackled with tension. Emma made her decision and closed the distance between them. Their lips met in a hungry kiss, months of restraint finally breaking. Jack's arms wrapped around her waist, lifting her slightly as he pressed her against the counter. Emma's hands moved to his shoulders, feeling the strong muscles beneath his shirt. Jack's lips left hers to trail kisses down her neck. Emma tilted her head, giving him better access. Her fingers tangled in his hair, holding him close. The sensation of his mouth on her sensitive skin sent waves of pleasure through her body. "Bedroom?" he murmured against her throat. Down the hall, she gasped as his teeth gently grazed her collarbone. Jack lifted her, and Emma wrapped her legs around his waist. He carried her to the bedroom, their lips never separating for long. They fell onto her bed together, a tangle of limbs and urgent touches. Clothes were discarded piece by piece, each new revelation of skin met with appreciative touches and kisses. Jack took his time exploring her body, his photographer's eye seeming to memorize every curve and reaction. Emma had never felt so seen, so desired. When they finally came together, the connection was more intense than Emma had expected. Jack moved with a gentle rhythm that gradually built in intensity. Their eyes locked, and Emma felt exposed in a way that went beyond the physical. This wasn't just desire, it was something deeper, more frightening. Afterward, they lay tangled in her sheets, Jack's fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. The rain had started again outside, creating a cocoon of sound around them. "You're quiet," Jack said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Emma rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Just thinking. Regretting this? She looked up at him, seeing vulnerability in his eyes. No. Not at all. She traced his jawline with her finger. Are you? Jack's smile was warm. How could I regret the best night I've had in years? They stayed that way, talking softly as night fell. Jack told her about growing up in a family that moved constantly, never staying in one place long enough to call it home. Emma shared stories of her small-town childhood, her dreams of working in the art world, and the gradual decay of her marriage. He never understood why art mattered to me, she said. To him, it was just pretty pictures. Jack nodded. That's why I take photographs, to show people what they might miss otherwise, the beauty in ordinary things. Is that how you see me? Emma asked, suddenly insecure. As a beautiful moment to capture before moving on. Jack rolled over, propping himself up on one elbow to look at her properly. I don't know what this is yet, he admitted, but I know it's not temporary for me. The honesty in his voice made Emma believe him. They made love again, slower this time, learning each other's bodies with greater care. In the morning, Emma woke to the smell of coffee. She pulled on a robe and found Jack in her kitchen, wearing just his jeans, making breakfast. Morning, he said, handing her a mug. Hope you don't mind me raiding your fridge. Emma took the coffee, watching him move around her kitchen as if he belonged there. It should have scared her, how comfortable it felt. Instead, she found herself smiling. I have to be at the gallery by 10, she said, checking the clock. Jack nodded. I'll drive you. As they ate breakfast, Emma's phone buzzed with a text from her boss. She read it and frowned. Problem? Jack asked. 10 days. 10 endless days since Jack had left for Paris. Emma tried to focus on work, but found herself checking her phone constantly. They talked every night, video calls where Jack showed her the sights of Paris and told her about the artwork he was photographing. Emma showed him the progress of the exhibition preparations. They never mentioned what would happen when he returned. Today was particularly hard. Emma sat at her desk, staring at the exhibition catalog layout. Jack's photographs were stunning. He had a way of capturing the essence of each painting, bringing out details even she hadn't noticed before. You look miserable, said Olivia, Emma's assistant and closest friend, placing a coffee on her desk. Missing your photographer? Emma sighed. Is it that obvious? Only to anyone with eyes. Olivia sat down. So what happens when he gets back? I don't know. Emma fiddled with her pen. It's complicated. Because you're making it complicated, Olivia said bluntly. You like him. He likes you. What's the problem? The problem was that Emma was falling in love, and it terrified her. Jack would be back in 4 days. Then what? Continue their affair until he got restless and moved on to his next adventure. Emma didn't think her heart could take it. That evening, instead of their usual video call, Jack sent a message. Exhibition running late. Can't talk tonight. Miss you. Emma stared at those last 2 words. Miss you. Such simple words, but they made her heart race. She typed back, miss you too, then deleted it and wrote no problem. Talk tomorrow instead. Sleep wouldn't come that night. Emma tossed and turned, thinking about Jack, about the way his body felt against hers, about his laugh, about how in just a few weeks he had become so important to her. She hadn't meant for this to happen. One kiss had changed everything. The next day brought more frustration. Jack didn't call or text. Emma told herself he was busy, that Paris was 6 hours ahead, that he would contact her when he could. She threw herself into work, staying late at the gallery to avoid going home to an empty apartment that still held traces of Jack's presence. On the 3rd day of silence, Emma's worry turned to anger. Was this it? Was he already moving on, too cowardly to even tell her? She thought about their night together, how intimate and real it had felt. Had she imagined the connection? Emma was arranging artwork late that evening when she heard the gallery door open. We're closed, she called without turning around. Even for me? Jack's voice made her freeze. Emma turned slowly. He stood there, looking tired from travel, but so handsome it made her chest hurt. You're supposed to be in Paris for another day. I finished early, caught the first flight back. Jack stepped closer. You didn't answer my calls today. My phone died. I haven't been home to charge it. Emma's heart was pounding. Why did you come back early? Jack put down his camera bag. Because I couldn't stand being away from you any longer. He ran a hand through his hair. a nervous gesture she'd come to know well. "I've been thinking a lot, Emma. About us. About my life." Emma felt both hope and fear rise in her chest. "And I got offered a permanent position with a magazine in Paris. Great money, prestigious position. The kind of job I've always wanted." Jack took another step toward her. "I turned it down." Emma's eyes widened. "Why would you do that?" "Because it would mean living in Paris. And you're here." Jack reached for her hand. "For the first time in my life, I'd rather be with someone than be somewhere." Emma's throat tightened with emotion. "What are you saying, Jack?" "I'm saying that one kiss did change my life forever. I'm saying that I've spent my whole life moving, never staying anywhere long enough to form connections. But now I've found something I don't want to walk away from." Jack's eyes were intense, vulnerable. "I found you." Emma felt tears well up. "I've been so scared, afraid to let myself feel too much because I thought you'd leave." Jack pulled her close, his arms around her waist feeling like home. "I'm not going anywhere. Unless you want me to." Emma looked up at him, seeing her future in his eyes. "I want you to stay. I need you to stay." "Then I'm staying." Jack's smile was brilliant. "I love you, Emma. I think I started falling in love with you that very first night." Emma reached up, touching his face. "I love you too." The words felt right, natural, as if she'd been waiting her whole life to say them to him. When their lips met, it wasn't like their first unexpected kiss, or their passionate night together. This kiss was a promise, a beginning. Emma melted against him, feeling his arms tighten around her, holding her as if he never intended to let go. And in that moment, Emma knew with absolute certainty that a single kiss really could change everything. 6 months passed in a blur of happiness. Jack moved into Emma's apartment, filling her space with his cameras, his books, and his laughter. They fell into a comfortable routine. Breakfast together before work, evenings spent talking about their day. Jack continued to work with the gallery but also took other photography jobs. Emma's exhibition was a huge success, bringing her a promotion. Today was their 6-month anniversary. Emma woke to an empty bed and the smell of coffee. She found a note on the pillow. "Meet me at the gallery at 8 p.m. Wear something nice. Love, Jay." Emma smiled, wondering what Jack had planned. She went through her day distracted, eager for evening to come. At 7, she slipped into a deep blue dress that Jack once said matched her eyes and headed to the gallery. When she arrived, the gallery was dark except for a string of small lights leading through the main exhibition hall. Emma followed them, her heels clicking on the polished floor. The lights led to the back room, where that first exhibition had been held, where they had shared their first kiss. She pushed open the door and gasped. The room was transformed. Candles flickered everywhere, casting a warm glow. But what took her breath away were the photographs covering the walls. Jack's photographs, not of landscapes or artwork, but of her. Emma walking through the park, Emma laughing over dinner, Emma sleeping peacefully in their bed. Intimate moments captured with love. Jack stood in the center of the room, wearing a suit, looking more handsome than she had ever seen him. "What is all this?" Emma asked, moving toward him. "This is us." Jack took her hand. "Our story." Emma looked around at the photographs, seeing herself through Jack's eyes. In each image she looked beautiful, happy, loved. "When did you take all these?" "I've been collecting moments since the day we met." Jack led her around the room, showing her the progression of their relationship through his lens. "This one was the day after our first night together. Look at your smile." Emma touched the photograph. She did look different. More open, more alive. "And this one was the day I came back from Paris." Jack pointed to a photograph of Emma looking up at him with such naked emotion, it made her heart ache to see it now. Jack brought her to the final wall, where a single large photograph hung. It showed them in this very room, 6 months ago, sharing that first unexpected kiss. Emma was shocked. "How? We were alone." Jack smiled. "Security camera. I had to beg Kate for the footage, then I took a screenshot and enhanced it." He touched the frame. The moment everything changed. Emma felt tears in her eyes. "This is the most beautiful gift anyone has ever given me." Jack took both her hands in his. "That's not the gift. This is just the setting." Emma's heart began to race as Jack reached into his pocket. He sank down on one knee, looking up at her with those blue eyes that had captured her heart from the start. Emma, before I met you, I was always looking for the next place, the next adventure. I thought happiness was somewhere out there, waiting to be discovered. Jack's voice was steady, but Emma could see the emotion in his eyes. Then one kiss showed me that what I was looking for wasn't a place at all. It was a person. It was you. He opened a small box, revealing a simple but beautiful diamond ring. I don't want to spend another day without knowing you'll be by my side forever. Will you marry me? Emma couldn't speak through her tears. She nodded, pulling Jack to his feet and into her arms. Yes, she finally managed to whisper against his lips. Yes, I will marry you. Jack slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands trembling slightly. When he kissed her, Emma felt the same electricity she had felt that very first time, but now deepened by months of love and trust. Later, after they had celebrated with champagne among the photographs of their love story, Jack led Emma to the center of the room. Soft music began to play, and he took her in his arms to dance. I have one more surprise, he said, holding her close. I sold some of my work to a major magazine. They want me to do a book. Emma looked up at him. Jack, that's amazing. What kind of book? 1 year later, Emma stood in a small room of an old stone building, looking at herself in a full-length mirror. Her white dress was simple but elegant, falling in soft waves to the floor. Her hair was swept up with a few curls framing her face. She looked different than she had a year ago. Happier, more confident, glowing with love. You look beautiful, said Olivia, adjusting Emma's veil. Jack is going to lose his mind when he sees you. Emma smiled, touching the diamond ring on her finger. I can't believe we're really doing this. Why not? You two are perfect for each other. Olivia handed Emma her bouquet of white and blue flowers. Ready? Emma took a deep breath and nodded. Music began to play, and Olivia slipped out the door to take her place as maid of honor. Emma's father appeared, tears in his eyes when he saw her. My little girl, he said, offering his arm. Let's not keep that young man waiting. They walked through the old stone building, which had once been a small countryside art gallery but was now set up for a wedding. Jack had found it during one of their weekend trips and immediately knew it was where they should get married. He had photographed Emma in the attached gardens, with sunlight streaming through the trees, and that photograph now hung in their living room. The main gallery space had been transformed with flowers and candles. Only about 50 people were there, close friends and family. As the music changed, everyone stood and turned toward the door. Emma saw Jack at the end of the aisle, standing tall in his black suit. His friend Thomas stood beside him as best man. When Jack's eyes met hers, his face transformed with a look of such love and wonder that Emma felt tears spring to her eyes. Walking toward him felt like walking toward her future. Each step brought her closer to the man who had changed her life with one unexpected kiss in a quiet gallery. When she reached him, Jack took her hands in his. You are the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, he whispered. The ceremony was short but meaningful. They had written their own vows, promises spoken from the heart. Emma, Jack said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. Before you, I was a wanderer, always searching for the perfect scene to capture, the perfect moment to freeze in time. I didn't realize I was looking for you until that night in the gallery when one kiss changed everything. You became my home, my anchor, my favorite subject. I promised to love you, support your dreams, and create a beautiful life with you. I promised to stay, to build, to grow with you. And I promised to never stop seeing the beauty in our everyday moments together. Emma blinked back tears as she spoke her vows. Jack, I had given up on finding someone who would see me, really see me, until you came into my life. That first kiss woke something in me I thought was gone forever. You taught me to take chances, to trust, to believe in the beauty of unexpected moments. I promise to love you through all of life's adventures, to be your partner and your home. I promise to keep my heart open to the wonder you bring into my life every day, and I promise that no matter where life takes us, we'll face it together. When they were pronounced husband and wife, Jack pulled Emma close for a kiss that held the same magic as their first, but now deepened by a year of love and trust. Their guests cheered, but Emma barely heard them. In that moment, it was just her and Jack, and the unbreakable bond between them. The reception was held in the garden, with fairy lights strung through the trees. They danced under the stars, ate cake, laughed with friends and family. Through it all, Jack kept Emma close, his hand often finding hers, his eyes seeking her out across the room. As the night grew late, they slipped away from the celebration and found a quiet corner of the garden. Jack wrapped his arms around Emma from behind, and they looked up at the stars together. "Mrs. Miller," he said softly, his lips against her hair. Emma smiled at the new name. "Mr. Miller." "Are you happy?" he asked, turning her to face him. In answer, Emma reached up and pulled him down for a kiss. "Happier than I'd ever thought possible," she whispered against his lips. Jack's hands came up to frame her face. Who would have thought one kiss could lead to all this? "I think maybe we were always heading toward each other," Emma said. "That kiss just sped things up." Jack smiled, that special smile that was only for her. "Well, I plan to keep kissing you for the rest of our lives, just to see what other miracles might happen." As they returned to their wedding celebration, hand in hand, Emma knew with complete certainty that taking a chance on love had been the best decision of her life. One unexpected kiss had indeed changed everything, and she couldn't wait to see what the rest of their story would bring.